There's a wolf, the girl says. Hey, little girl, you're a liar. Who the hell has seen a wolf these days? That little girl is just like the boy who cried wolf, one of the men says, giggling. The girl smiles. She smiles, showing her teeth, not making a sound.
The white wolf will eat you all up, and it will take me to the North Pole. I was originally an Eskimo. The wolves are protecting me.
The bus door opens, and a pair of men's brown shoes steps out. The man stops in front of a tin gate. The girl looks at the gate of her own house. A woman's shout comes out of the room. The room is noisy with the sound of things breaking, falling, and bumping, as if a physical fight is going on. The girl stands, holding the gate. The girl goes into the kiln and puts the cover down. No wind comes into the kiln. It is still warm.
The wolf is coming, the wolf is coming.
The girl's singing reverberates in the kiln. She falls asleep. Darkness falls over the kiln. No one is curious where she is or seeks her out. The moon rises over the kilns and the stars move.
Wolf, please take me now.
The Wolf Came, written by Un-yeong. There's a wolf, the girl says, looking at the oak tree forest. But her voice is buried in the sound of winds that shook the forest just a moment ago, and no one recognizes it. People sitting around the fire pan are looking at their meat on a grilling shovel, unconcerned with the girl. Only the girl stands up and sees without missing a single thing, the wolf coming down from the mouth of the mountain and stepping upon the parched oak tree leaves, escaping through the thin space between kilns numbers 2 and 3, and stepping onto the pile of wood. The blue smoke from the number 3 kiln, which just ignited, hides and shows the face of the wolf. The wolf turns his head and stares at the girl as he stands gallantly with 2 paws on top of a pile of wood. Callous brown eyes, the girl doesn't look away. The wolf doesn't move. He just looks at her without blinking. She sees the line connecting the wolf's 2 erect ears above his rhombic face, along the brow to the tip of his nose, and she moves her gaze little by little, following the ample silver fur on his neck, down through smoothly flowing hair on his tail. A strong wind blows from somewhere and lashes at the girl's eyes. She bursts into tears. She cannot look at the wolf any longer. Turning her head, she studies each face of the people around the brazier. Men are distracted, eating meat and mumbling with lips glossy with pork fat. There's a wolf, the girl says, thrusting her face into the group. A man who just put a piece of meat into his mouth hurriedly swallows it. Hey, little girl, you're a liar. Who the hell has seen a wolf these days? I burned my whole palate because of you. The man lightly knocks her on the top of her head, and his company laughs, raising their heads. It's standing over there, on the woodpile, the girl yells, clenching her fists. The men all turn their heads toward where she's pointing. Their faces momentarily stiffen and soon distort with sneers. The wolf has gone and is not there. Only acrid smoke blows over the pile of wood where the wolf had been standing. That little girl is just like the boy who cried wolf, one of the men says, giggling. Hey, stop carrying on and go ask for another half-pound of pork belly quickly. Since you lied to us, you'll receive no tip, a stout man says, waving his hand and pushing her away. The girl looks at the mouth of the mountain from which the wolf walked out. The black mountain swallowed the white wolf. She talks to herself and turns away. She skips toward the restaurant, which is about 10 yards away. She kicks up dark soil with the tips of her feet. "Bring some bottles of soju as well," the man calls at her fragile back.
I am the girl who cried wolf. I can see the wolf anywhere. Under the oak trees, on our Majang-dong. The wolf shows up everywhere. I am the girl who cried wolf. The wolf lives in my eyes. Nobody listens to me. They say there's no wolf. They tell me to become blind. I am the girl who cried wolf. I am the girl who cried wolf.
The girl sings. Her melody and pace is her own. It sounds more like an old person's weaving song or a Native American Indian casting a spell than a song. Her singing voice spreads far away through the dark valleys of the village of kilns. The men gather their faces close together and burst into laughter. The liquor glasses go around again, and the charcoal in the kiln burns into a blue flame. The girl stops singing when she arrives at the restaurant. She focuses her eyes on the glass door of the entrance and observes what's going on inside. Customers are sitting at several tables beyond the misted glass door. An old couple to whom the girl had served wet towels at a kiln now occupies a table in the center. The girl turns toward the back of the kitchen, putting her palms on the wall of the building. The long-settled ash sticks to her palms. She opens the door cautiously. Even after entering, she hesitates for quite a while. In the kitchen, a small-built woman is standing by herself, washing the dishes. She rinses them, the water hissing as it makes contact. The girl, fiddling with her nose, watches the woman.
Mom,
the girl says quietly, but she doesn't look back.
Mom.
The girl's voice becomes slightly louder. The woman only turns her head after the girl calls her several more times. Her eyes are tired and annoyed. She just glances once and soon turns her head back, returning to what she was doing. She doesn't look back toward the girl until she puts the last rinsed dish on a crate and shakes off her hands. The girl helplessly scratches her nose and follows her movements. Wiping snot from her nose, the girl says in a murmur,
Mom, the wolf again.
Even before she finishes talking, the woman picks up a dripping wet kitchen cloth and throws it at the girl. The kitchen cloth hits the girl in the face and drops to her toes. "Are you talking about the freaking wolf again? How come you're always talking about the wolf when your mom works her tail off at someone else's restaurant? Why don't you just get the hell out with your damn wolf?" The woman rolls her eyes and yells at the girl. The bowl that the woman has just put up drops to the floor with a metallic sound. Dirty water runs down the girl's face, and she cannot look straight at the woman.
The men ask for a half-pound of pork belly and soju,
the girl murmurs. "Why do you come to the kitchen and tell me? You should go to the counter and tell the owner bitch sitting there like a lady." The woman jerks open the refrigerator door and pushes the girl out of the kitchen. The girl quickly wipes the water from her face with her arm and leaves quietly. She pushes the restaurant door open without any hesitation. She acts quite differently from when she first stepped in.
Ma'am, those men asked for a half-pound of pork belly and soju.
"How many bottles?"
"I don't know. They just said they wanted some."
"You should have checked exactly how many." The owner woman looks askance at her and cranes her neck toward the kitchen, calling, "A half-pound!" The girl picks up a candy from the candy basket and puts it in her mouth. The woman, again, looks at her askance, watching her cheek twitching. A serving tray with pork belly is already out on the kitchen sink. The girl puts 3 bottles of soju in the black plastic bag, hangs it over her wrist, carefully lifts the pork belly tray, then leaves the restaurant.
I am the girl who cried wolf. The wolf only likes me. I am the girl who cried wolf. You'll be sorry if you don't believe in the wolf. I am the girl who cried wolf.
Her voice diminishes and is much quieter than earlier. She only moves her lips to sing as if trying not to be caught by someone. The bottles dangling in her hand keep the beat by clanking. The girl walks carefully so as not to drop the meat from the plate. Before she reaches the fireside, she steals a few pieces of meat and puts them into her pocket. "What took you so long? I've been waiting a coon's age for you." The man clicks his tongue as the girl hands him the plate. He puts the meat on the well-heated grilling shovel, and the meat fat sizzles. The girl stands next to the men, warming her frozen hands by the brazier and watching the meat being grilled. "Wow, the four of us can easily finish up 1.5 pounds when it's charcoal grilled." "That's right. This is so good, not greasy at all." The girl widens her nostrils and takes a deep breath. "Hey, little girl, you come here and have some." A man puts chopsticks in her hand. She squats down in front of the brazier, puts a piece of meat on the shovel, and brings it to her mouth right away. Whenever she chews on the meat, her dog tooth shows slightly.
"By the way, do wolves really eat people?"
The girl asks. "They sure do," the man responds. "This kid has probably seen a wild dog or something at least." The girl smiles. She smiles, showing her teeth, not making a sound. Her narrow eyes squint further, and her cheekbone, flushed from the fire, stands out. The men glance at her and turn their heads away. The dirty stains on the girl's face keep her from looking sweet, like the faces of other children her age. The girl, who sells water to the people coming out from the saunas or runs errands lurking around the kilns, annoys them. Dirty water drops from the water bottle she hands people. Her hands are small, with blackened fingertips. Her worn-out coat that is too big for her body has lost its original red color and is dirty and shabby. The dirt that soils the lower ends of her sleeves looks glossy. She quarrels people and brings them to the meat grilling tent, even when they don't ask her for it. The liquor is poured into glasses, and the men are back to their stories. "The charcoal kilns are really good. After I sweat it out, I don't get drunk no matter how much I drink. Is it because of the good air? Only the hillbillies have been enjoying the good stuff." "That's right. They're damn smart. They charge us 5,000 won just for putting a mat in the kilns after they pull out burned charcoal."
"Have you seen a wolf?"
This girl is quite persistent. "Of course I have. Hey, little girl, look at this man here. The guys who look like this are all dogs." The man, holding chopsticks, holds up his hands as if they were claws. The girl glances at him and goes back to eating the meat. "Little girl, you like this meat, huh? Do you want to try this drink?" The man hands her a paper cup containing liquor. "Why would you give such a thing to a little kid?" "Why not? We grew up like this too. I used to drink rice wine tricked by adults. It's just a sip. Here, try it." The girl puts down her chopsticks and takes the cup. She empties the cup with a gulp. It turns her red around the eyes. "Wow, you seem to be used to this. You've probably had a lot of this while hanging around. Hey, have mine too." The man pours the liquor, filling up the cup. The girl, downing 2 shots in a row, breathes out harshly and stands up from her seat. She bumps into the shoulder of the man, staggering, and ends up falling to the ground. The sound of the men's laughter spreads in the wind. The fire in the brazier is burning low. The girl staggers. The clouds holding moisture make the night sky darker. The smoke from 20 kilns rises up into the pitch black. The girl walks like smoke, wavering back and forth against the sky. She stops in the middle of the road. Her body sways back and forth. She does her best to maintain balance, planting her feet firmly on the ground. Barely pulling herself together, she puts her hand in her pocket. She holds a piece of meat in her hand. She throws it far away, and dragged by the strength of her throwing arm, she ends up toppling over. She raises herself up and then rotates, making a circle around herself. She moves slowly, as if penetrating something hidden in the darkness. She spreads out her fingers. Her palm is stained with blood, and she dries it by putting it out in the wind. The wind softly licks her hand. The girl takes a deep breath and exhales repeatedly. Whenever she exhales, a few giggles pass her lips. A stream of yellow runs down from the bottom of her pants. She looks down at her own body, opening her arms. She looks at her steaming pants, thighs sticking, and her feet in a puddle of urine. She stands in the middle of the road, giggles, and sings until her pants stop steaming, and her thighs become wrapped in painful coldness.
I am the girl who cried wolf, the girl who cried wolf.
The sound of her singing breaks the darkness into pieces. The wind that comes over the fence crosses the empty playground and shakes the classroom windows. The stream of wind squeezing in through the cracks in the windows makes a whistling sound, yet the classroom is stuffy, sultry, with the breath of 30 kids and the heat from a stove sitting in the middle of it. The classroom floor is messy with crumpled paper, pens, and instant ramen noodle crumbs. A red coat falls off the back of a chair and is squashed by the chair next to it, sweeping dust across the floor. The girl is sitting in that chair, in a spot that rarely catches anyone's eyes, as if she was crushed into it. The girl is looking out the windows. Snow started to fall some time ago. A kid sitting behind the girl lets out a high, energetic shriek.
It's snowing!
The children stir. The female teacher pounds on her desk with a small stick. As the girl turns her head toward the teacher, she sees her coat on the floor. The girl bends her body and pulls at it, but the child whose chair is sitting on the coat, knowing the girl is trying desperately to grasp it, won't lift up the chair for her. Instead, he seems to use all his strength so as not to let the coat escape. While the girl is hanging onto a corner of her desk and pulling with all her strength, her desk tilts. The tin pencil case on the desk falls to the floor and pours out what's inside. A ballpoint pen rolls towards the teacher's desk. Cut short because of the fuss the girl has created, the teacher frowns. The kid sitting next to the girl looks askance at her, along with the teacher. The girl is unable to pick up the pencil case, but only manages to pull out her coat and hold it in her arms. The teacher turns her head as if giving up. The girl looks down and sweeps her messy hair up. After class, the children are bustling either to pick up cleaning equipment or to pack their bags. Some of them are driven to the windows and shriek, looking at the layer of fallen snow. No one is around the girl. She opens up the windows wide as if she can't stand the closed space. She holds her body out through the window and inhales the cold air. The sprinkling snow fades away. A boy approaches the girl, muting the sounds of his steps. She's still holding her body out and looking out the window. Her eyes seem to be heading farther away, through the playground and beyond the fences. The boy reaches his hand out and pulls the girl's hair, dragging her head back abruptly. He keeps tugging her pigtails and yanks her inside. The children surround her in a flash. The boy is much taller than her. As he opens his hand, her hairband is loosened. As if on command, the children all either pull her hair or drag her coat. The girl waves her arms erratically, as if shooing away annoying flies.
The wolf will eat you all up!
The girl unexpectedly raises her eyes and yells.
The wolf won't let you get away, ever!
She states clearly, pointing at the boy as if placing a curse on him. Her eyes are blazing. The boy shrinks back. Other children step back a little as well. The boy, after looking around, thrusts his face at her. Where's the wolf, you idiot? The boy drives her to a corner, pushing her forehead with his finger. Even if there is a wolf,
he'll eat up a liar like you first, wouldn't he?
The children follow him, nodding their heads.
The wolf likes me.
The girl shouts with all her might, raising her head defiantly after carefully studying the children's faces.
The white wolf will eat you all up, and it will take me to the North Pole. I was originally an Eskimo. The wolves are protecting me.
Whenever she speaks, the children laugh, but she continues as if she can't stop.
It's a mistake that I'm here now. The white wolf, he'll take me there after he teaches all of you a lesson.
The girl's voice trails off little by little, and nothing can be heard. Oh man, she says she's an Eskimo. Why don't you say you're a wolf girl? The boy chuckles while talking loudly. The children laugh along with him.
Yeah, I'm a wolf. I can even smell dried fish on your breath. I could find your house by that smell alone. You'll see. You won't even take one step out of your house that night because you're afraid.
The girl, exposing her canine tooth, stares fiercely at the boy. You liar! The boy, huffing, pulls her hair roughly. He kicks her desk and turns his back to her, and the other children also leave her one by one. She is alone again. She fixes her hair as if nothing has happened and shrugs on her coat. The girl crosses the playground, kicking the thick sand grains as she walks.
I am the wolf girl, an Eskimo riding on a wolf. When is the wolf coming? It comes whenever I want,
she sings, swinging her school bag. The girl passes through the school entrance and reaches the bookstore around the terminal. She passes the magazine section and stops at the children's section, which displays children's books, videos for toddlers, and puzzles of animal illustrations. She holds the school bag between her legs and browses through the pile of puzzles. She picks up one of them, wipes off the dust with her sleeve, and heads toward the counter. Coming out of the bookstore, she holds the puzzle in her arms and walks quickly. The bus she gets on runs through the mountain bends. At every turn of the mountain curve, she looks outside the window with her eyes wide open. She sees the trees running by fast, the fields passing by slowly, and the mountain edge following for quite a while. The sky has stopped sprinkling snow, but still looks heavy as it weighs down the mountain's edge. The girl steps off the bus and runs straight home. Mom! There is urgency in her voice. She calls her mom again, opening the doors of the bedroom and kitchen. Realizing her mother isn't there gives her a certain freedom, so she throws her bag down and yells as much as she wants.
Where did my mom go? Mom sweats her guts out at the restaurant.
Leaving the door open, she hums. She lies on her stomach and looks at the puzzle. It's a simple puzzle for small children. She turns the puzzle over, scatters the pieces, and then starts to play. A forest forms on the edge, and a brown tail and 4 legs find their places. Her humming almost stops and then continues furtively. She works at the puzzle haphazardly, with not many puzzle pieces to begin with, seemingly drawing out the moment when it will be finished. When she completes the puzzle with the last piece, a wolf appears. Her gaze meets the wolf's eyes in the puzzle. She looks into its eyes for a long while, resting her chin on her hands and lying on her stomach. A dog barks somewhere outside. The girl gets up hurriedly and goes out to the living room as if she has thought of something important. Her eyes scan the yard and move quickly to the tree by the village entrance at the end of the field. The eyes gradually head farther away, and it looks like she's waiting for someone. She sniffs and looks around. The smells of burned wood and sap from fresh-cut wood nearby float on the wind. She puts her shoes on and leaves through the entrance gate. A van is standing in front of the sign at Jinheung Wood Charcoal. It is muddy from the melted snow near the charcoal kilns. The girl heads to the number 8 kiln, dragging her shoes, heavy with mud. A wrinkled old man is moving the front door of the kiln. The charcoal powder sits deeply in each wrinkle on his neck. A young man with his hat jammed on is looking in the kiln, holding on a long shovel. He opens the kiln door, revealing burning red charcoal. As the old man puts down his hammer, the young man takes out the charcoal and moves it into a hole in the ground. Every time the red charcoal comes out, the girl follows the shovel and jumps about. She drags a shovel from a corner. Little frivolous thing, what do you think you're doing with that shovel? The young man asks while throwing the charcoal in the hole.
I love the white charcoal most.
Who doesn't know it's good in this town? Now why don't you go away? It'll all be burned away because of you." The girl drops the shovel and steps back. The old man tries hard to put the shovel in deeper as the charcoal near the kiln door is almost all in the hole. The lump of charcoal left in the inner part of the kiln is still blazing with a blue flame. The young man starts to pull in ash over the hole. The ash covers the charcoal. The smoke rises up from the bulging pile of ash.
"You'll set up a tent here tomorrow, right?"
No one answers her question. The old man is mixing clay on the side, and the young man is patting down the pile of ash with a shovel.
"I'll do the errands here tomorrow. There'll be a group of customers because tomorrow is Sunday. It'll be no problem for me to bring in some extra charcoal stuffed pillows for them."
The girl babbles, following the young man around. The old man blocks the entrance of the kiln with mixed red clay. The young man moves a giant fan and corrects the metal frames and tent.
"Isn't the number 9 kiln also yours, Grandpa? We also had 5 a long time ago. When my dad was here, the 10 and 11 ones over there were all ours. And it's not that we sold them completely, we just lend them. They say we'll get them back when my dad comes back later."
The old man blocks the chimney of the kiln.
"You'd make more money if you could take all of the charcoal out from the inside, right? The white charcoal is a lot more expensive."
The young man dips the piled ash from one side with a shovel and throws it over to the girl. The powdered ash rises from the tips of her toes. The two men turn off the naked light bulb and leave the kiln, dusting off their clothes. The girl is left alone in the dark. The girl puts her hand behind her back and sits down, leaning against the kiln. She takes out a piece of charcoal from her pocket and starts to scrape off the clay and dust stuck to her shoes. Her hands are getting dirty. She looks around, still holding the piece of charcoal. Her eyes water, but her thick eyelids blink the water away. She stands up from her seat and dusts herself off. The dust blows from her body. She steps across the muddy path and moves toward the kiln, where she hears the sound of people. The girl stays until late at night, peeping around the kilns, talking to people or picking up the charcoal pieces and putting them in her pocket. People ask her to run errands, but they don't pat her head or thank her. Nevertheless, she doesn't leave the kilns. Only right before the restaurant lights turn off far away does she start to run on the dark path toward home. The girl looks in the direction of her house, standing at the entrance of the village, and her face stiffens. She cannot move for a while. She inhales once and starts to take steps slowly. She walks, looking at the ground, her head down. Her hand trembles as she pushes the tin gate open slightly. Even after silently opening the gate and crossing the yard, she hangs back. She fixes her gaze on the shoes placed beneath the floor. A sneaker, with the heel folded in, has been thrown in the yard. She fixes the back part of the sneaker, neatly lines it up with its pair, and takes her shoes off next to it. 2 pairs of sneakers face the entrance gate next to each other. She shrinks her shoulders like a child being severely scolded and opens the door. "Where the hell have you been leaving all the doors open? What happened to you? Did you come from some briquette storage or something?" The woman's voice winds the girl around like a whip. The girl, seeing a cleaning cloth in her mother's hand, instinctively covers her face. The puzzle flies instead of the cloth. "Is all you have in your damn little head the wolf? Not even your mother or father, huh?" The puzzle grazes the girl, hits the threshold, and scatters into pieces. Her neck shrinks until it becomes completely hidden by her shoulders, and she stands, looking down at her feet. "If you thought about your mom at least a bit, you wouldn't make this mess in the house," the woman says, angrily wiping with the cleaning cloth. "The whole room is covered with ash. How can I hang even a piece of underwear in here?" The girl picks up the pieces of the puzzle and shoves them into her pocket.
"I'll do the wiping."
The girl crosses over the threshold. "Where do you think you're going with those dirty feet?" The woman glares at her. The girl hastily steps back out. The woman grasps at the pile of dust she has gathered in one spot with the cloth and throws it at her feet. Go wash your feet real clean. If not, you won't even be able to step a single foot in here. Do you understand? The woman puts her hands on her knees and pushes herself to stand. The girl picks up the cloth and quietly closes the door. The puzzle board is still on the woman's sneakers. The girl, stepping down barefoot, puts the puzzle pieces together again while resting herself on her mother's sneakers. Even as she keeps herself busy locking the pieces together, she repeatedly looks back at the room. She finishes the puzzle easily, but one piece is missing. It's the part where the tip of the tail and the hind leg are. She slides the puzzle under the floor, being careful not to scatter it, and covers it with a broomstick. Then she puts on her shoes and takes off her coat. Her body is small and thin. Her skinny neck and chest are evident through the stretched neckline of her sweater. Carrying a bucket out from the bathroom and going to the kitchen, the girl keeps peeking under the floor. She opens the lid of a huge pot over the fireplace. The water in the pot is full as if the pot was just filled up, but there is no hot steam. The girl takes the empty bucket and leaves the kitchen. Some white thing is flickering in front of the girl's eyes. She raises her head and looks up at the sky. The snow has started to fall. She grins. The girl turns on the water faucet and fills up the bucket. She puts her hands in the wash basin and looks into the water. Every time she wiggles her fingers, the reflection of her face on the water becomes distorted. She pushes up her sleeves and starts to wash her face. The dirty water drips down her skinny neck. She's having a hard time taking the frozen soap from its case. The soot that's smeared on her hands isn't wiped away easily. She rubs the back of her hands and neck with the scrubbing cloth, and it leaves her skin swollen and red. She pulls up her pants to the thighs and washes her feet. Her thin legs are covered with wounds. Her skin in the ankle area is crinkled as if burned, and a dark bruise remains on her knee. She smears the soap on the scrubbing cloth and carefully cleans her heels and between her toes. She flops down on the soaking wet cement floor as she puts her feet in a wash bowl and washes off the foam. She undoes her pigtails and washes her hair as well. Her neck area, sleeves, and pants are entirely wet. The wet clothes wind around her body. She washes her socks and cleaning cloth in the last batch of water she used for washing her hair, puts them aside, and leaves the bathroom. The snow has piled up quite a lot in the yard in the meantime. The girl crosses the yard, stepping on the freshly fallen snow. Thick snowflakes settle on her wet hair. She pushes the woman's sneakers under the floor and steps up on the floor, dripping water. She opens the door, and there are white sheets spread across the room. The woman hands her a clean set of underwear. The girl changes her clothes, standing on the floor. The cold wind circles her bare skin. Nevertheless, she takes off her clothes without hesitation. She seems to have an extra layer of skin, not losing body heat in the freezing climate. She whips up the frozen chunks of her hair and steps into the room. There is no space to put a foot because of the blankets occupying the room. The girl curls up her toes and stands awkwardly. "Stop standing there like that and pull the corners over there," the woman says, adjusting the sheet. The girl tiptoes around the cotton comforter and sits down at the spot the woman pointed to. The bleached white sheet is starched and ironed. The girl carefully pulls the tips of the sheet as if handling valuables. She pulls and spreads the sheet, adjusts the corner of the front side, and makes a hem as the woman tells her. "He came around at this time." The woman chews off a thread. Her voice sounds as though she is dreaming, but then she stops. She seems to be talking to someone outside the door, not to the girl. The girl gives the woman a bewildered look, but she ignores, absorbed in threading a needle. She starts to baste the sheet with a big needle. The girl is sitting down, with only the tips of her toes under a corner of the comforter. The stitches form a straight line on white calico. The girl pushes her feet under the comforter little by little, avoiding the woman's eyes. The woman is stitching the sheet over the comforter, and the girl is dozing off next to her. No wind shakes the windows. In the warm room, there are only the quiet sounds of a flopping sheet and sewing. It was the night of the year's first snow. It was a pretty heavy snow for the first snow of the year. Perhaps all the ridges through the east were closed. The woman sews the 6th stitch and pulls up the thread. The girl stiffens her body, heavy with sleep, and looks at the woman. Who would have thought he would come back? I heard he ran off with some young slut working at a bar, and they got a place together. I was so mad that I burned all his clothes and sold his kilns. So, what do you think I did with the comforters? But this was the comforter I bought when I married him, and I couldn't throw it away. I just stuck it somewhere. Pulling up the thread every 6th stitch, the woman's murmuring stops and restarts. Because of the comforter. He said he came back because he missed the comforter. He was sick of this land of Hwangsong and never wanted to come back. But he was missing the comforter, he said. A smile spreads across her mouth. But then, I unfolded the comforter and it stank like hell, and those stains. She finishes, tacking down 2 sides of the sheet and straightens her back. The girl cannot hear her anymore. She has already fallen asleep, her head dropped down against her chest. The woman stares at the stamen and pistils of the peony embroidered on the front part of the comforter, still holding the needle in her hand. The woman's faint sigh reaches the peony. She threads the needle again and stitches. As the woman pushes the needle into the last thick corner, she suddenly cries out. Dark blood gathers on her index finger. She just looks at her finger without moving. She doesn't hear anything except the sound of the girl's regular breathing. The woman slowly raises her head and looks at the girl. The air in the room grows tight. Suddenly, the woman snatches the comforter, uncovering the girl and pitching her forward on her face. Look at your messy hair! Why the hell do you go around looking like that? Because of how you look. The woman roughly pulls the girl's arms, dragging her toward herself. The woman makes the girl sit in front of her and brushes her hair, pulling at it roughly. She divides the girl's wet hair in half and starts to braid, smearing sections of it with her own saliva. The girl dozes off, leaving her hair to her mom. The girl's head keeps falling down, but the woman whacks the girl's back and makes the girl keep her head up. She twines the rubber band all over the tip of her hair and sticks in the bobby pins. The girl's hair is firm and tight, and the woman brushes the girl aside and rises. She goes outside, crossing over the girl's body. The wind blows in through the open door. The girl crawls on her knees to the front of the door and falls asleep, curling up her body. Unable to close her eyes completely because of the tight braids, she sleeps with her eyes slightly open. A corner of the comforter sewn with a new cover reaches the tips of her toes. The comforter is white and clean. It has snowed all night. The snow covers roads, trees, and mountains. The borders of the soil and the kilns, so black with charcoal powder, have all been erased with white. Only a few kilns that are lit with a fire reveal their black roofs. The sound of blowing bellows has also lowered its pitch, muted by the white snow. The odd silence created by the snow leaves only the sound of wind from the blowing bellows. The smoke coming up through the kiln chimney is lost in the wind and waves silently. A bus, its roof covered with ice and snow, turns a curve, breaking the silence. The bus stops in front of the standing stone of the kiln village. After the wheels have stopped, the bus still slides a little farther ahead. The bus door opens, and a pair of men's brown shoes steps out. A set of leather ribbons hangs on the narrow-toed shoes. A man follows, carefully stepping down one step at a time. He staggers and balances himself, as if stepping off a long sail, still slightly seasick. The man is wearing a thin layered jumper jacket with a slender waistline. He holds a handy backpack close to his body. It doesn't match his suit pants or shoes. He looks terribly hungry, either because of his thin jacket or his shrugged shoulders. The bus hits the road again, making a snow whirlpool and breathing black smoke through its exhaust tailpipe. The wind dishevels the man's hair. He watches the disappearing bus and rummages through his pockets. He pulls out a cigarette pack and holds a cigarette in his mouth, but it's hard to light because of the wind. He pulls up his collar and lights it. His eyes follow the black smoke waving above the kilns. He blows out a stream of smoke to the direction of kilns, but the smoke doesn't make it far and soon disappears, swept away by the wind. He throws away the cigarette, smoke down to the filter, and moves on. He walks slowly, his hands thrust in his pockets. The girl is sitting below a shade tree that has bloomed snow flowers. She is in the middle of drawing something in the snow, burying her head between her legs. It looks like a dog, but it's a wolf. She has been sitting there for some time as her hand, holding a charcoal piece, is frozen red. She sees the man's shoes stop in front of her. She raises her head and looks up at him. He takes out another cigarette, holds it in his mouth, and lights it. He's not looking at the girl. He looks at the roofs of the village, which number only a handful.
Mister, are you here for the sauna?
The girl asks, looking up at the man. He doesn't say anything. He draws on the cigarette deeply and exhales the smoke in her direction. He puts out the cigarette by flicking it and walks on the road again, pulling up his backpack. The girl steps on the burning stub at the bottom of the tree and follows after him.
Mister, did you come to work here? Did you? The restaurant lady's son got a job in the town, so she was looking for a person to work. You came instead of her son, right?
She walks with an irregular gait closely behind him, chattering. He walks without looking around even once.
The office is up there. Do you want me to show it to you?
The man stops and makes an annoyed face. He takes something out of his pocket and hands it to the girl, a piece of candy. It's a toasted brown rice-flavored candy that the restaurant serves as dessert. The man turns around again and walks fast. The girl unwraps the candy right where she stands and puts it in her mouth with a crackling sound. The man is now far away from her, and she rushes to catch up to him. The man stops in front of a tin gate. The girl also stops walking and looks at the man who has stopped in front of her own house. He opens the gate and enters. He crosses the yard and sits on the floor. The girl stands stolidly outside the gate. The man takes off his shoes and steps up onto the floor. The girl turns her head and looks far beyond the shade tree. The man opens the door to the room. The girl looks at the gate of her own house. A woman's shout comes out of the room. The girl hurriedly steps inside the gate. The room is noisy with the sound of things breaking, falling, and bumping, as if a physical fight is going on. The girl stands, holding the gate. The woman continues to cry out. The girl goes forward little by little, but hesitates. The sound of crying trails away. The girl stands in front of the floor. She doesn't hear anything from the room. She looks into the shoes placed under the floor. She puts her hands inside the man's shoes. Putting her hands in, she stays there for a while, as if she was a shoe-shine boy, or is warming her hands in the shoes, still warm from the man's feet. The girl fixes her gaze between the floorboards and picks up something. It's the missing puzzle piece. She takes out the puzzle board that she hid under the floor. She pours the puzzle pieces in the man's shoe. She puts the puzzle board under her arm, holds up the shoe with the puzzle pieces in it, and leaves the gate. The woman's white sneakers and a man's black shoe are left under the floor. The girl drags her shoes on the snow-covered road. The girl sits quietly under the shade tree. Clear mucus runs down from her nose. She neither wipes it nor sniffles. She just sits there and stares into space. She whips the snow up and covers the picture she drew. She gets up from her spot. She walks slowly, stepping on a jagged stone every time she sees one, and picking up broken plastic toys or boxes from beneath the layer of snow. When she passes by a long fence, she takes out a charcoal piece and draws a long line on it. Ordinarily, since it's a holiday, the kilns would be busy with a group of sauna customers. But there's no one around. There's no place being piled with new wood or being lit with a fire, and there is no tour bus bringing people over either. The stacker crane parked by the pile of wood stands with its head fixed down on the ground, covered with snow. The girl looks into the office. A young woman is looking at the mirror in the office, sitting alone in front of a desk. The girl apathetically turns around. She goes up to the woodpile and walks on it, balancing herself with her arms up. She sweeps the snow and throws it in the air and pushes, drifts off the woodpile. She plays with the shoe, holding the puzzle pieces, sliding it as if it were a car. She runs around like a dog covered with snow. After playing on the pile of wood for a while, she jumps down from it and walks toward a snow-covered kiln. The girl goes into the kiln and puts the cover down. Inside the kiln, it is dark, but the chimney hole lets in a dot of light the size of a palm. In the kiln, there is only the sound of the girl's steps in the straw cushions. The girl puts the man's shoe and the puzzle board around her head and lays down. No wind comes into the kiln. It is still warm.
The wolf is coming, the wolf is coming.
The girl's singing reverberates in the kiln. She falls asleep. Darkness falls over the kiln. Late at night, the office of Jinung Wood Charcoal is unusually bright with lights. The office is crowded with people. The people raise their voices, either putting their hands on their waists or pointing their fingers. A man standing in front of the office is smoking a cigarette, peeking inside. He looks somehow anxious, sucking at the cigarette continuously. He is wearing a woman's rubber slippers. The slippers look ridiculously small for him, and his heels touch the ground. The man lights up a new cigarette. Hee-jung's mother, how could you do this to me? You handed it over to me. How could you tell me to give it back to you now, huh? Demands a man whose face is smeared with soot. You can build a new one. It doesn't cost much. I told you that I lent it to you. And when did I ever tell you I would sell it to you? So I'll take over the number 12 kiln. The veins in the woman's neck bulge. We already have more than enough charcoal now, and if we make more kilns, it only means we're all going to be out in the street. Is that what you want? The man strikes the desk with his fist and yells. We need people to work for us. Why don't you tell them to work for us, huh? And you as well, keep working with us. Isn't it good for everybody? The restaurant owner holds the woman's arm and tries to convince her. No, I don't want that. Give it back to me. Isn't it enough for you to use it for over 5 years? The woman's voice is decisive. Whatever, I can't give it back to you. The man turns his head. You know I'm right, director. My kiln has been here from the beginning of this kiln village. Please, give me my schedule starting tomorrow. The man, who was called director, just looks at the blackboard. I trust you, and I'll go now. The woman turns around. The man who was arguing with her holds her shoulder. The woman shakes off his hand and hastily opens the door. The man outside the door throws away the cigarette and looks at the woman. She nods shortly and walks off first. The man pulls up his pants and follows her. The man and the woman mix their bodies into the darkness. Wind blows. The wind that came down around the valley makes a snow mane above the kilns. The snow-covered kiln looks like a white grave or an igloo. The girl inside the kiln is in a deep sleep, unaware of the commotion outside. No one is curious where she is or seeks her out. The moon rises over the kilns and the stars move. A winged animal's cry sounds faintly from a faraway mountain, its cry alerting those around it. Day is breaking. The girl wakes, having adjusted to the darkness. The girl crawls straight to the entrance and pulls up the cover. The dim light surges in. The girl comes back to the center of the kiln. She flips the shoe and scatters the puzzle pieces on the floor. She starts to put the puzzle together. She looks at each piece of the puzzle, sitting down, stooping over it like an old lady. She puts the puzzle together with heart and soul, as if assembling a dead animal's bones. She thrusts in the last piece that was missing on the puzzle board. The wolf has its true form. The girl meticulously strokes it with her fingertips from nose to tail.
Wolf, please take me now.
The girl's warm breath reaches the puzzle. The wolf glimmers in her eyes. The wolf in the picture slowly puffs out its body. It stretches its legs, straightens its back, and shakes off its body. The white hair fluffs up. The wolf rubs the tip of his nose on the girl's nose and runs out of the kiln. The girl rises up from her seat and goes out, following after the wolf. The wolf is gone. The girl stands on the woodpile and looks around. Soon after, the white wolf that ran out of the kiln shows up in front of her, bringing his pack. The girl reaches out her hand, but the wolf is far. She walks toward the wolf, and the wolf turns and crosses the road, leading the pack. She follows. The wolf's steps become faster. The steps of the pack following the leader hasten to keep up. The girl walks fast as well. A car with snow chains turns a curve, chains clinking, and comes downhill. Every trail of its wheels splashes chunks of snow dug by the chains. The girl doesn't see the car. She runs forward vivaciously, following the pack of wolves. The sharp sound of the car braking divides the empty air. A hunter is walking on the snow in the piercing wind blowing from the Arctic Ocean. Having closed his thin lips tightly, he walks, forcing his way through the knee-high snow. His squinting, narrowed eyes don't miss any tiny movement in the forest. The hunter is aiming at a pack of reindeer beyond the forest. The reindeer are distracted, looking for food, digging in the snow. The hunter sights his rifle, targeting an old male reindeer falling a little behind the group. Bang! The reindeer pack scatters into the forest. The old reindeer falls down right on the spot, his black eyes twinkling. The hunter moves the dead reindeer across the tree branches and starts to debone it. The hunter and his knife leave the reindeer with nothing but bones. The hunter brings a still warm piece of meat to his mouth. The reindeer's blood smears across his face. The hunter covers the reindeer bones with snow and leaves the forest, taking his prize. He disappears, and the forest regains its peace. The hunter seems to have come too far away from where he parked his sleigh. Nevertheless, his face is filled with a relaxed smile. His footwork is light even though his feet bog down, sinking in the snowy road as the blizzard picks up. He hears a dog bark from a distance. He rushes his steps. His dog sleigh is in the distance. A girl in fur clothes, clutching her hands together, is waiting for him in front of the sleigh. The dogs, smelling the meat, bark at the hunter. He takes pieces of raw meat and gives a piece each to the dogs and the girl. The sleigh dogs gather their mouths and leak blood from each other's. The hunter rushes the dogs. The sleigh carrying the hunter and the girl crosses the snowy field.
Where is the reindeer going now?
The wolf woman is taking him. When she reassembles his bones and blows her breath into them, he is then reborn with his own pack.
Does she take us when we die as well?
Of course she does. The Wolf Came, written by Un-yeong. The Wolf Came is a short story by Un-yeong, published in her collection Myeonglang, published by Munji Publishing Company. The English version is translated by Ali Huang and narrated for this audiobook by Jamie Kim. This audiobook was produced in 2021 with the support of the Literature Translation Institute of Korea.